Right, so Australia in the global economy. So what do you need to understand Australia's place in the global economy? So here you have how Australia ranks in terms of GDP. It's the 12th economy. So this means that almost Australia is doing better than almost 200 other economies, but obviously, if you compare it to giants like the US, the EU, China, Japan, it's relatively small. Another way to compare Australia with other countries is to look at standards of living. So here you see the results. So in 2014, Australia was ranked second in the world in terms of quality of life, according to the United Nations Human Development Index. This shows that Australia has a very high level of economic development. About trade, you need to know that it has evolved. So the direction of Australia's trade has changed considerably over the recent decades. In the 1950s, Australia traded mainly with the UK and other European countries. Then Australia shifted to Japan, which became the major buyer of Australian exports. And more recently, China, South Korea, and Asian countries of Southeast Asia have become increasingly important as exports market. This shift is mainly explained by the decision of the UK to join the European Economic Community in the 1970s, because after that it became very difficult for Australian exporters to access European markets. So it had to find other partners. So it first found Japan, and now, as you can see here on the map, it is China, which is the main trading partner of Australia. So this has been so since 2007. China accounts for approximately 1/3 of Australia's export earnings from merchandise trade. Australia is not exporting the same things that it was exporting 20 years ago. What you need to know is that primary industries, so agriculture and minerals, have always been the main focus of Australian exports, because Australia has a comparative advantage in commodities due to its vast natural resources. So Australia has experienced significant changes in the composition of its export base. So in 2014-2015, Australia's total exports were valued at $320 billion. Metal and minerals were Australia's largest export. You see on the figure here, though, that agriculture and manufacturing have been declining, while exports of minerals and metals have increased. The question here, though, is this sustainable? Because really Australia is depending very heavily on China, and many things think that it's not the brightest way of but many think that it is not a very good idea. One thing is certain, Australia's trade links have been increasingly Asian. So it brings me to geopolitics and the notion of the Asian century. So it's the idea here that this refers to a white paper published by Julia Gillard, a former prime minister from the Labour Party, who published a white paper entitled Australia and the Asian Century. The idea was that Australia was at last at the right time, at the right place, okay? At the right place, at the right time. See where Australia is, and you see why they're trading with Asia. So in terms of geopolitics, what you need to know is that Indonesia has been, well, Australia has had very complex relations with Indonesia, and Australia has been trying to help this country here, Pacific Islands, which have often been referred to as the Arc of Instability. I'll just say 2 words on the South China Sea dispute. So you've learned about it in your geopolitics class with China, and you know that there've been disputes over the different islands there for a long time. This is mainly because it is a very important sea route, a sea lane, where you have lots of trade happening there. And so no one really wants China to claim those islands. The problem is that, as you've seen, Australia is very heavily reliant on on China for trade, and so even if it has clearly said that China should follow international rules, follow a rules-based system, China has simply said to Australia that, well, really it issued threats to Australia. What happens is that Australia also has very close links with the United States, which is trying to make sure that China doesn't take full control of the area, and so there are even military troops, American military troops, based in the north of Australia. So it's quite a complex system there, where you see that Australia's dependence on China is making it very difficult for the country to really say or to really enforce what it is advocating. Okay, so this is the end of the second lecture on Australia.